So what's up, everyone? This is Stony with Behind the Stick. In this video, you'll be able to see my personal dog, Kenbi, doing her first attempt at a ring one. Most of the time I'm kind of behind the camera, but you'll be able to kind of see me as a handler in this video. We've actually already done her leg two, her second leg of ring one, and she actually made some considerable improvements in some key areas, but obviously, there's always things to work on. But here you just be able to kind of see her first attempt at ring one and just kind of get some, behind the scenes commentary. So here's her hurdle. She did this pretty good, and she jumps really well actually, but we have to do a lot of training to kind of make sure that she clears the jumps, because she has the tendency to just jump further versus jumping vertical. But she cleared both of these pretty clean. It was close, but she cleared it, so that was good. So this next exercise is the absence of handler. Just a little detail. You'll notice when the dogs go into that down position, a lot of dogs had a tendency to do what you're seeing here, which is sniff around, especially if they're on a new field. So all the dogs have, either sat or, downed into that little box. So there's a lot of scent in that area. So the dogs just have the tendency to sniff around. You do not want your dog to do that, because they can basically take themselves out of position. Because if they continue to sniff in one direction, keep turning their head, they'll naturally literally just get up, or they'll twist their body to the point where they're just no longer in that down position. And of course, they'll lose all the points. They'll lose points for that exercise. So, we train the dog to go down and to keep their head up. She still does it in this exercise. You'll see in a video I'll post of her second attempt at ring one. She doesn't do it. It's just something that you just have to keep training, and eventually the dog will just kind of develop that habit of dropping down and not, instinctively start dropping their nose and sniffing, because again, they can take themselves out of position. So here's the thrown retrieve. She does this pretty good. She doesn't chew it too much. She chews it, I think, like once. She gets a couple points taken away. When she goes forward, she kind of runs in a slight circle there. She doesn't do too bad. We try to train the dog to run in as straight a line as possible. And I'll kind of post some videos on that, kind of showing the difference between when a dog runs in that large circle versus when they kind of run in that straight line. The little things that we do to try to minimize that. Next exercise is her positions. She does all of her positions well, but she crosses the line. So she's creeping forward as she's doing some of the positions, which is just one of those things that you really have to work on, because the dog instinctively wants to get closer to you. And she also gets distracted here. She looks over to her left. So when she goes into her down position, as you'll see, she kind of puts her body at an angle. So you want to try to avoid all of that. You want to try to keep the dog's attention, keep them as straight as possible, and also keep them from crossing that line. So, that's something that we worked on for her next attempt. And it's just something that you just have to constantly work on, because the dog instinctively wants to get closer and closer to you. So you want to try to train a down and back position instead of just the typical down. So all those little details that you try to correct and avoid. Again, you see her kind of sniffing. When I put her in a down position, she's kind of sniffing the field, which again is normal, but it's just one of the things that you have to be mindful of training, so that the dog associates down with not only a position, but just being still, not sniffing around, not being too curious. This is the food refusal. She does pretty good. She doesn't go for any of the food. She typically does pretty good with the food refusal. We train it in kind of a specific way to where the items thrown at them don't really have any value, and then we come back and kind of reward them with something that has more value. And of course, just having a solid, down, is critical to that. She typically does pretty good with the food. She doesn't go for the food. Let's exercise the heel on leash. It's a very simple exercise, but it's actually, I won't say it's one of the hardest, but it's one of the most vital exercises, because basically everything that you do on the field, once you step into the field, everything is a heal. You know, you're healing from one exercise to the other. So just having a solid heal is really critical, and something I'm still working on. Training her from a puppy to now, there you kind of go through a phase of increasing the criteria as far as what you expect with the heel, but it's actually really challenging to get a dog to just give you that full 100% committed heel to where they're looking up, they're focused. So this is supposed to be her focus heel. As you can see, she's kind of distracted now, she's kind of looking around. She's still walking with me fine, but because this is her focused heel, she should be looking directly up at me and kind of maintaining eye contact. But as you can see, she's not. So it's just one of those things that I have to constantly work on, and constantly try to increase that criteria to kind of get that solid heel. Because again, everything, once you walk into the field, everything is a heel. You're healing from one exercise to the next, and just kind of maintaining that that glue of the whole exercise, the whole performance is basically all built upon just having a really good heel. This is the Muzzle Hill. This heel, obviously, as you can see, doesn't have a leash. It's literally just the muzzle on the dog's face, and you're just walking. So this is this is actually really challenging for the dog, because number one, they have the heel on they have the muzzle on their face. So they have the tendency to kind of, want to get it off their face. Sometimes they'll shake their head. And, sometimes even for visibility, they'll try to get it off. So it's really just a lot of repetitions, just getting the dog comfortable with just walking, with the muzzle on, but that's another one that's kind of challenging for the dog. Now we're getting into the protection exercises. As you can see, she's really amped up at this point, and she was really losing a lot of her obedience at this point, because she's just so geared up to go after the decoy, which obviously you want the dog to be geared up and ready to go, but they have to maintain obedience. So at this point, she was like barely, she's barely hanging on by a thread at this point as far as her obedience, because she's really raring to go and go after the decoy. Obviously this was her first attempt at a rank 1, and this is a new decoy. So typically when the dogs see a new decoy, they get even more excited, and this is kind of the case here. She did really well actually in this exercise. She had a really pretty clean out. She didn't stay on the bike too long. She came back. I would have preferred to see her come back with a little bit more speed, but she came back pretty well. So here on the defensive handler, she does not do this exercise really well. Again, you see she's really just barely hanging on to her obedience at this point. She's getting kind of bouncy, she's getting antsy, she's really raring to go. So here, obviously on this exercise, the decoy will do a handshake, and she almost bites him on the initial handshake. Here, as you see, he kind of pauses and looks back at the judge. Judge is like, okay, go ahead. And then right here, she tags him. So she's supposed to obviously wait until he shakes my hand, then he'll walk behind me, turn around, and then come up from behind, and then the dog will, supposed to bite when the decoy is within a meter or when he makes contacts. But, she bites, she makes contact when he makes that initial handshake, which is not what she's supposed to do. So she loses points on that. This is the Revolver Attack. Again, she's biting really well, considering her training and how much she's developed. Now here she did a really good guard. She went down. She's pretty patient, and when the decoy tried to escape, she bit. But for whatever reason, on the second out command, she just comes straight back. So it's almost like she assumed that the out command was a heel command, as if I was telling her, hey, come back. But I was just telling her, to let go and go back into a guard. So she only got some points for that exercise because she did complete it. You know, the dog is supposed to guard a couple times on that exercise, and then they come back, you know, on a whistle once you go up and disarm the decoy. And this is the last protection exercise, is the face attack. So the decoy, you know, literally will face the dog with the stick, as you can see. And here she makes a pretty good entry. She doesn't slip her bite. That's something that we had to work on a lot. That's kind of one of her weaker points. She's been developing much more. I've been kind of doing specific things to really help build up her muscles in her head and her jaw to give her more strength, so that when she gets that first initial bite, she can kind of hang on. She has a tendency to slip off. You know, she doesn't have, you know, she's not the strongest dog as far as her head strength and, you know, head size. So I do a lot of things to really just kind of help her build up her head muscle, try to help her out as much as possible. And obviously just getting the dog to understand the dynamics of the decoy's movement will improve upon that as well. But she did pretty good overall, you know, for her first attempt at a ring one. You know, not too bad. She got third place. Soon I'll be posting her second leg of ring one, and you'll see she improved quite a bit. I was much more content with her second attempt at it, even though there still was some things that, you know, she didn't do as good as she could have. But, you know, that's the fun of it. You know, the fun is basically the training and understanding your dog, understanding your dog's strengths and their weaknesses, and training with those things in mind, and, you know, seeing the dog develop. Yeah, overall she's still improving, and I think I'll probably do another ring one attempt just to try to get a higher score before I move on to ring two. So she's officially a ring two dog now. I can compete, you know, with other ring two dogs. But I would still like to see just a really clean ring one performance from her first before moving to ring two. You know, big shout outs to Miles and Darian, everybody at you know, Southwest K9 Sports, and, you know, Behind the Stick, you know, all the training that kind of goes into it. I post another video more specifically about her as a dog, and, you know, some of her traits and abilities, strengths and weaknesses. So stay tuned. Please be sure to like and subscribe. We have a lot of really good videos on, you know, ring sport training, you know, French ring, Belgian ring, even some things that, you know, apply to a PSA. Season 2 is coming soon. Behind the Stick, it's going to be some incredible content. So stay tuned.